just as the fact that, okay, it's raining and I can't see a distance, it's also the obscurity of what's happening. I know Patrick and I will agree completely on this one. Trying to helm with glasses on in heavy rain and read instruments and things like that, it's just not easy. Snowfall. You can get complete whiteouts. Sailing in snow is actually really, really, really good fun, if not chilly, because it's like being in a wind tunnel, and you can trim your sails absolutely perfectly as the snowflakes go across them. But obviously it does have the issue of being restricted visibility. Sandstorms. Sandstorms, we see them off the coast of Africa, North Africa, West Africa, most common areas for them. They are a disaster. They can be lethal and really should be avoided at all costs. You can literally get sandblasted in them. They're not very nice at all, so avoid them at all costs. And then you got smoke and sea smoke. Now smoke I've added, and you'd think, why smoke? When we were sailing around Australia earlier this year, they were having all those fires on land, and literally our visibility dropped below a mile, just because of the smoke coming off Australia. And then you get sea smoke, which is basically a very light mist above the sea. So you could miss a small boat in below it, but you'll see a mast sticking out. Okay? And then severe weather. Obviously, severe weather has restrictions to how much you can see. Can you see over the swells? Can you see through the rain or the foam or whatever is hitting you? So your restriction, your visibility drops enormously. Or basically any phenomena that restricts your ability to see other vessels at sea and therefore avoid collision. So here's a perfect example of sea smoke, mast and rig sticking out the water, but you can hardly see the vessel. So any smaller vessels you would miss. Okay, so actions. Actions to take in restricted visibility. First thing is obviously if you see the restricted visibility coming in, do a position fix. Know exactly where you are on your chart. Okay. Secondly, make note of any vessels around you, visibly. Okay, I've got one on my port bow, one on my starboard bow, whatever it is, you know. Make a visible note of them where they are before it fogs in and you lose them. Okay. If your vessel's equipped with radar, turn it on and then fix all the vessel's positions. Modern radars, you can actually put a fix on and say, okay, track that vessel, and track that vessel. And you can actually track vessels on your radar, so fix them on there. Obviously turn your AIS on if it's not on, because that gives you a very, very good indication of any AIS enabled vessel. However, and I'm going to say very, very big however here, remember not all vessels have an AIS. So do not rely on your AIS solely. Okay, it's a lot of ski boats, a lot of smaller fishing boats do not have an AIS system, and they are not mandatory. They are nice to have, and people put them on their boats, but they are not essential. Obviously, make ready for immediate hand steering. If you're sitting under your autopilot and you're just sailing along, probably go onto hand steering, or at least make ready to turn off your autopilot and be there immediately. Get you ready for engine ready for immediate use. Some of these modern systems, like the spin lock system here, this lever is not necessarily in there. So you'd have to make sure your lever is in, make sure it is ready for use. Okay, obviously post lookouts. Post lookouts where you can, somebody up at the bow, where they can see any oncoming vessels. Make sure somebody is also looking behind you. Have your foghorn ready. Be aware of your correct signal. Am I sailing? Am I motoring? That sort of thing. For fixed systems, a lot of vessels have fixed foghorn systems. Test them regularly before you leave port. These wires and bits and pieces that run up your rig take a lot of water and just make sure they're working. It's worth checking them. On modern VHFs these days, they actually have the ability to reproduce sound signals through fixed systems. So if you have something like that, make sure that you know how to use it. Make sure your crew knows how to use it. So you don't have to go below and push all the buttons. You can be on deck controlling things if needs be. Okay? Very, very useful system. So you can literally set it up and say, okay, every 2 minutes, perform a long and two short, or one long if you're motoring. And you can literally just set it up and it does it for you. Very useful systems. Okay. Obviously have vessel-to-vessel communications ready. So on 16, or if you're in a harbor area, then their specific channel. So you'd say, okay, in Saldanha, you'd probably be monitoring 12 and 16, around Cape Town, 14 and 16, etc. Okay. Put your crew in safety gear. If they're not wearing PFDs, get them into safety gear as soon as you possibly can. It's like massively important. I get my crew to clip on as well, because if they do go over the side by some unlucky chance, you might never be able to find them in restricted visibility again. In extreme cases, if there's an enormous amount of traffic and around you, I'd actually get my grab bags ready for deployment, or my abandoned ship, just in case. Okay. In other words, the whole thing is plan for the worst, hope for the best. So if we go actually into Rule 19 and we look in Rule 19 in depth, okay, Rule 19 is restricted visibility. Okay, so the rule applies to vessels not in sight of one another when navigating in or near restricted visibility. And again, there's that in or near piece. Okay, so this applies to all vessels at sea, including us. So all these rules actually apply to us as well as ships, vessels, everything else. But being smaller, we need to take a little bit of extra care. We can maneuver a hell of a lot better than big vessels moving in channels, things like that. But having said that, being hit by a big ship, we don't get away with it nearly as easy as they would. Okay, so 19B, every vessel shall proceed at a safe speed adapted to the prevailing circumstances and conditions of restricted visibility. A power-driven vessel shall have her engines ready for immediate maneuver. Okay, now that's specifically aimed at having your engineering crew ready on a ship. However, I just leave my engine running, just in case. There's no harm in it. You're just charging your batteries, so I just leave my engine running. Okay, being smaller, we can maneuver faster and more effectively than big ships. So we can actually get out of big ships' ways more easily. Sometimes discretion is a better part of valor, i.e. if you're a stand-on vessel, it might be worth a radio call to a big ship to say, we'll get out of your way, you stand on. Okay. Note the radio call. You really, really must get hold of the ship and tell him what your intentions are. Otherwise, he will assume you're going to remain the stand-on vessel. Okay, so don't be scared to pick up the radio and say, vessel coming towards me, whatever size, I can see you. We will do it, turn to port to avoid collision with you. You may stand on, we will give way, even though we are the stand-on vessel. He'll call you back and say, thank you very much. As long as he's aware of your intentions, makes life fine. Okay, the next thing about Rule 19 is you must have due regard for complying with the rules of Section 1. Now, what does that mean? That means even when navigating in restricted visibility, and Rule 19 is not the only rule that applies. So your steering and sailing rules still apply. So if you're a sailing ship and you've got a powerboat coming towards you, you need to be aware of the original rules as well. So rules 4 to 10 apply. So lookout, safe speed, TSS rules, etc., 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 steering and sailing rules all still apply. Okay, avoid collisions and close quarter situations as much as you possibly can. Specifically close quarter situations. Okay, then in Section D, we're talking about radar. Now, you can't see out there. You literally can't. Your radar is on, okay? So you've now determined there's a close order situation developing and or a risk of collision. If so, it'll take avoiding action in ample time. Well, that goes back to the earlier rules. Provide that such actions consist of an alteration of course, and so far as possible, these shall be avoided. Okay, so I'll go into that. An alteration of course to port for a vessel forward of the beam other than a vessel being overtaken. So if you're the blue boat, any vessel forward of the beam, don't turn to port. Okay, only ever turn to starboard. Okay. The next one, an alteration of course towards a vessel, a beam or abaft of beam. So if you've got a vessel on your port aft, do not turn aft. If you've got a starboard aft, do not turn to starboard. Okay, so it basically shows you your quadrants that you need to turn to, green being the good port, starboard, and red being port, obviously. Okay, in restricted visibility conditions. So it's quite different to your original rules, isn't it? So if we look at that again, an alteration of course to port for a vessel forward of the beam. So you don't turn to port for any vessel forward of the beam, and an alteration of course towards a vessel abaft a beam. So if your vessel's on your port, you turn to starboard. If your vessel's on your starboard, you turn to port. So you'll notice there's quite different rules there. Okay, if we take that into deeper consideration, there is the complete layout for the correct turns by a vessel. Okay, now, I'm not going to go into much detail there because the previous page basically details it. Okay, but you can see again, there we go. There's all your starboard turns. There's your port turns. Okay. Okay, then, except where it has been determined that a risk of collision does not exist, every vessel which hears apparently forward of her beam the fog signal of another vessel, okay, so anything that's forward of you, if you hear a fog vessel forward of you, okay, which you can't avoid a close quarters with, you're going up a channel like this photograph, okay, you shall reduce speed to absolute minimum to hold your course. Okay, and if necessary, take all way off. In other words, stop. So you're basically navigating with the most extreme. Okay, so if you've got a little bit of current, you need to keep a little bit of way on, or if you've got a little bit of tide, you need to keep a little bit of way on. If you've got tide towards you, you can stop. If you've got a little bit of windage, you might have to keep some way on, but absolute minimum just to hold your course. Okay. So stop if you can. I mean, if you need to stop, there is no harm in stopping in any restricted visibility. It's good seamanship. Okay, then Rule 35, which is actually part of Rule 19, is the sound signals that we use in restricted visibility. So I'm not going to go through all of them because there's anchor loud sounds, etc., etc., etc. But I'll go through some of the major ones that we should know off the top of our head. Power-driven vessels. We are often, as sailing boats, power-driven vessels. Motoring in and out of port, we are power-driven vessels. Okay? So one prolonged blast every 2 minutes. Okay? Now, it's a favorite question. You're sitting on a sailing boat and somebody says to you, okay, we're motoring into port. What is our sound signal? You say, oh, we're a yacht. It's long and too short. We're not. We're a power-driven vessel. It's one long, prolonged blast. If you find yourself having to stop, it's 2 prolonged blasts. Okay, that's all power-driven vessel. That's when we're actually motoring, not sailing. Sailing is 1 prolonged followed by 2 short. Now, if you look at this list here, a vessel not under command, a vessel restricted in ability to maneuver, a vessel constrained by her draft, a sailing vessel, a vessel engaged in fishing, okay, a vessel engaged in pushing or towing, shall then do 1 long and 2 short. Again, 1 every 2 minutes. So that's quite a long list of people who use 1 long or 2 short. So don't just assume if you hear a long and 2 short, you're looking at another sailing vessel. It might well be anything of the above. Okay, so these are just tips, restricted visibility tips. Okay, quite simple. Always wake your skipper. If you're in a long leg and your skipper's asleep, make sure he's awake when you go into restricted visibility. Plan for your worst. Okay, let's make sure that everyone's in life jackets. Let's make sure everyone's got their foul weather gear on. Let's make sure that we've got our tethers on and we clipped on. Plan for the worst. Don't be shy to call other vessels on the VHF. A lot of people don't like calling vessels for some reason. All these vessels are quite happy to chat to you. In fact, a lot of these radio operators want to chat to you at sea because they're bored. Okay? Try as much as possible to keep out of the way of larger vessels. Okay? It's one of the things that's been requested specifically in places like the Solent, which often has fog, and they've got a lot of quite large vessels going up and down there. And basically everyone has been saying, please get the smaller vessels, stay out of the channel unless you need to cross. So if you can, as a smaller vessel, stay out of the way of bigger vessels. Then use as many crew as you want as spotters. Get your whole crew up. If you reckon it's going to be an hour or two, get the whole lot up and use them as spotters, behind you as well as in front. Okay? And then lastly, remember you might be in sunshine and there could be a ship hiding right next to you. Okay? So it's in or near restricted visibility. Okay. Put your nav lights on and make sure they're the correct ones. If you're sailing, tricolor, otherwise a masthead steaming light and your nav lights. Make sure if you're motoring, you don't put your tricolor on. Please, guys, do not put all your lights on so people can see you. They can see you, but they've got no idea what you're doing. I've seen it numerous times going into Mykonos, on the Mykonos race, where we've had a bit of fog by the latter half of the race, shall we say, when we're going into Mykonos, and I see the biggest concoction of lights as we go in there. If you're sailing, correct sailing lights. If you're motoring, correct motoring lights. Guys, please. Okay, a little bit of quizzing. I'm a sailing vessel motoring into port in fog. My sound signal should be, I'm a sailing vessel motoring into port. So it's one long, two short, or one long, two long, and one short. This one, everybody should know. There we go. Getting some nice right answers there. Okay, I'm a motoring vessel drifting, but still underway. So my engine's running, but I've taken all my way off. My sound signal should be one long and two short, one long, two long, one short. So this time, I've heard a vessel forward of the beam, and I have stopped. One more. I hear a sound signal to my port bow. What should my actions be? Alter course to port, slow down to minimum controllable speed, alter course to starboard, or stop. And there are actually two answers that I'll accept here. Note this is just I have heard a sound signal at this stage. I don't know if there is a risk of collision. Okay, so first one, I'm a motoring vessel in this case, so one long every 2 minutes. Doesn't matter that I'm on a sailing vessel, but I'm motoring. I'm drifting, but I'm motoring, so too long. Okay, the difference between underway and making way. Remember, underway, the term underway means I'm not connected to the ground in any way. I don't have an anchor, I'm not connected to a dock, I'm not aground. I'm actually just moving. That's underway. Okay, so I've just heard the signal ahead of me. Okay, I don't know if there's a collision or not yet, So I either slow to minimum controllable speed or I stop. Okay, I don't need to alter course yet. I don't know if there is a collision. Okay, I've just heard a sound signal. I don't know if I need to alter course. Your immediate action, if you hear something off your bow, either side, is slow to minimum controllable speed or stop if you're not ready for it. Then you can deduce whether or not there is any sort of risk of collision involved. Boat might be coming towards you and pass you happily port to port. But until you know that, slow to a minimum controllable speed and then stop. Okay, and obviously all these actions are with regard to avoiding collision or close quarters. All of these actions are to do that. Okay, it's pretty simple if you think about restricted visibility, but it is one of those things that we should know off the top of our head. Next, the marine environment. Okay, this is the oceans that we play on make up 71% of the Earth's surface. Okay, but unfortunately, they're the least understood, and they are the most biologically diverse ecosystems in the world. They are completely undervalued, and it's up to people who use it to look after it more than those who don't. Okay, so MARPOL was therefore invented. MARPOL was brought in, okay, part of the maritime, the IMO, in 1978, okay, because there was a bunch of tanker accidents in 76 and 77. So MARPOL was introduced, and that's basically the governing authority for pollution at sea. So if you ever see something that says MARPOL, it's about pollution at sea. It's the main international convention aimed at the prevention of pollution from ships. And that's either operationally or accidentally causes. Okay, so there's a bunch of annexes within the first MARPOL section. First one is oil, noxious liquids, harmful packages, sewage, garbage, and air pollution. Now, obviously, air pollution isn't a problem for us. Sewage is fairly minor. We don't carry any of this lot. Okay, so garbage is the main one we look at. Where and what can we dump? Within 3 miles of shore, it's illegal to dump pretty much everything. Pretty much everything. Throw orange peels over the side. Here's a little tip, guys. Don't throw banana peels over the side. Bananas are naturally generated to be able to float from island to island in the tropics. So banana peel is actually naturally generated to survive salt water. So it can carry itself from one island to the next. So they don't degrade in salt water particularly quickly. They will degrade when they get washed up, but try and keep your banana peels on board because they just look crap at sea. So first 3 miles, don't dump anything. Okay, then from 3 to 12 miles, you're allowed to dump a few bits and pieces, but basically don't dump anything either. Okay. When you're 12 miles offshore, you can drop quite a bit out. Okay. I tend not to, but plastic and anything that floats, tonnage that floats, don't drop. Okay. And 25 miles off, again, you're pretty clear, but I wouldn't do it anyway. So 25, I keep all my plastic, obviously, but paper, and only throw foodstuffs into the ocean. I don't throw tins into the ocean. I don't throw glass into the ocean. I know people say it'll degrade and everything, or they just carry it all. Okay. When I'm bunkering, and that means when I'm putting fuel on the boat, I always have a cleaning kit available. If someone goes and knocks your fuel into the water or something like that, you make a mess. It's worth just having a cleaning kit. I just grab a thing of clean green. That does the job. Okay. And when I look at whether or not I can pump out my black tank, I look at it and go, okay, if I'm in water clean enough to run my water maker, then I don't mind pumping out my black tank. If I'm close enough to the shore that I wouldn't use my water maker, well, then I won't pump out my black tank. So I just use that as a reference. Okay. And guys, marine rubbish is called gash. Just like port and starboard is left and right, marine rubbish is called gash. Okay, so flotsam. What does flotsam mean? It's debris that is not deliberately thrown over the side as a result from a shipwreck or an accident or washed off the deck or anything like that. Flotsam is stuff that accidentally went over the side, as opposed to jetsam. Now, jetsam is debris that was deliberately thrown over the side, okay? So it's either done by malicious or, more often than not, ships in distress will dump cargo to try and lighten the ship's load to keep them afloat. That's jetsam. Then you've got Lagan, pronounced Lagan, okay? So it refers to goods that are cast overboard and are heavy enough to sink to the ocean floor, but they're tied or otherwise linked to a marker buoy, some sort of marker buoy on the surface, and they can be found again at any time, okay? So if something happens to your boat, in worst case scenario, put a line on it with a fender that says owner salvage. Okay, in 1996, 3 of the Dragons, these beautiful English sailing boats, sunk in shallow water off Cowes, just off Uja Point. Okay, bad weather, they went down. Okay, only one owner stuck a buoy on it saying owner salvage. The other 2 were salvaged and sold on, basically sold on, but picked up by people who didn't actually own the vessels. Okay, so that's Lagan or Lagan. Okay, so if you do think your boat's going to go down, make sure you've got something that says owner salvage. Okay, and then you've got derelict. Derelict basically means, okay, that's it. It's on the ocean floor and that's it. You cannot, it's thus abandoned. It can't, you've got no hope of reclaiming it. Okay, so that's derelict. So a wreck that is derelict is not coming up, as opposed to Lagan, which you could well still salvage. And it doesn't necessarily mean it's a boat. Something goes over the side, drop an anchor with a buoy, you can recover it. Okay, and then just a little bit about sailing etiquette, just to finish off all the presentations we've done. The first thing is it's our duty to preserve the sea's natural state and ensure we leave it in pristine condition. We don't want to be sailing around a tip. Okay. Unfortunately, not everybody does it, but we can definitely do it ourselves. Okay. The next thing is we must know our ColRegs. Stand on, give way, steer clear, etc., etc., etc. It's our duty as seamen to know these rules so we don't annoy other vessels and or create close quarters situation. Okay. On that note, you are responsible for your own boat's wake. Okay. Sorry. Firstly, make sure you completely understand the rules the right way, and also make sure you know your own wake. So if you're in a power boat and you make a wake on a coastline or through a bunch of anchored boats, you're actually responsible for any damage done by it. You can be chased down by various marine authorities and be charged and made to pay. So if you cause damage by motoring a yacht through a marina, you'll be caught, chased, and any damage done to somebody on that marina, you will pay for. Okay? And not to mention the fact that if you're on a boat, on anchor somebody, and somebody comes past kicking up a huge wake, they just throw your stuff all over the place. Okay? There was a terrible, terrible accident with a French family off Mallorca a couple of years ago, where they were sitting on anchor, having a romantic evening, had some candles on board. Somebody came past, kicked up a massive wake. Candles fell over onto the cushions. Cushions caught fire, and they got caught below in a cabin and went down with the boat. That was caused by somebody's wake. So don't have candles on board, first rule, but secondly, be aware of what's behind you and what you're kicking up. Okay. When overtaking a slower vessel, okay, make sure you give as much room as possible. It's just etiquette, okay? In turn, if someone's overtaking you and you can see they're coming past you, they're nicely abeam of you now, I know the rule says hold course and speed, but there's no harm in you just slowing down a bit so they can cut in front of you. You know, you're not in a hurry, okay? We spoke about pump out etiquette. Now, pump out is obviously when you're emptying black tanks, okay? There's nothing worse than people who literally ignore these pump out pump out rules and pump out stations. Okay, so be aware if you're traveling anywhere where your pump out stations are and how you get to them. Are there booking times? Is there a certain tide that you have to be aware of, etc., etc.? Or travel far enough offshore so it doesn't affect other people. Okay, obviously, as a sailor, you obviously help out any other sailors in need. Okay, vessel in trouble, and do your best to help them, but make sure you ensure your safety of your own vessel and crew first. Okay, and that might be helping somebody just lift an anchor to actually helping somebody in a mayday. So you, as a fellow sailor, you always try and help out. It might be as close as just, okay, it's blowing quite heavily and there's a boat coming into moor, I'll walk over and take a line. It's just good sailing etiquette. This is one which I'm not sure all the race boats understand. Try and always be polite to another vessel, even if they're annoying you and your crew. If somebody's doing something stupid in front of him, don't swear at him. Just get on the radio politely and say, vessel, what is your intentions, please? You know, try and always remain polite. Okay, when you do your VHF, you know you're not allowed to use foul language, and I still hear it. Foul language on the radio and between vessels. People screaming at each other because somebody's doing something stupid in a marina. Just hang back, let them do something stupid, and then go in. Okay, stay out of the fights. Okay, at any time, be ready to assist with any sort of emergency. Often it could be as simple as just being a relay. You know, you're halfway onshore and they're halfway offshore. Land station can't reach them, you could be a relay. Okay, highly unlikely they're going to ask you to actually assist in the actual rescue. Okay, and then lastly, remember yacht clubs have rules, so abide by them. I mean, I wonder how many people know that we're not allowed to wear singlets and we're not allowed barefoot at Royal Cape. Just abide by these silly rules. They'll get you back again. Okay, so going on about maydays, always inform the skipper or wake the skipper. Make sure your skipper is aware of a mayday, even if you heard it and he didn't. Record all communication. In your logbook, get your logbook out and record absolutely everything that is said over the radio. It doesn't matter how many lines of a logbook or how untidy it is, get it scribbled down because you might need it. Okay? If you're on channel 16, stay off the radio. In fact, just stay off the radio until the mayday is over. Okay? Emergency services might need that channel. Okay? Your skipper will inform you what to do as crew. Okay? And it might well be, okay, X person, you're just going to sit in front of that VHF and record everything. Y person, you're going to relay for me on deck what's going on. We're going to drop the sails, whatever it is. The skipper will tell you what's going to happen. Okay? And then breathe deeply and don't panic. Just get on with the job. Just get on with the job. Okay, a little bit of quiz. When can I dump my plastic? Never 3 miles, 12 miles, 25 miles. Hopefully we've got a continuous set of answers here that's 100% correct. Okay, is the MARPOL rules maritime law? Is it part of the IMO maritime law? Is it yes, no, or only in certain countries or only to big ships? So that MARPOL rules, is it rules or is it suggestions? Okay, upon hearing a mayday call, you should radio to assist, inform the skipper, run on deck to see what's going on if you can help, or call the Coast Guard and tell him that you are safe. So, never dump plastic. Never allowed to dump plastic. Is MARPOL part of the IMO maritime law? Yes, it is. And it accounts to us too. Okay? So we do fall under the IMO. We are vessels at sea. And upon hearing a Mayday call, you should inform your skipper immediately. Even if he's asleep, doesn't matter. You get him up, and that's it. Okay? Always inform your skipper immediately that there is a Mayday call. So that's it. 10 sessions. Gives you some good ideas from that lot. Restricted visibility is in every single maritime exam. Doesn't matter. Rule 19 is always there. Okay? Don't get flustered about Rule 19. If you look at it, it actually makes perfect sense. Don't go towards people, slow down, that sort of thing. Okay? I use Marinus as an app. If you want to put something on your phone before you're leaving, you can download it and it's all with you out offshore. It doesn't need to be connected to the internet. And if you've got any questions, give me a shout. So, let's go for question time.
Wavy.
Hello.
Hi. Just before everyone starts their questions, on behalf of everyone on the course and Royal Cape, thank you very much for dedicating your 10 weeks to us. I think everybody has learned a huge amount, even Alan. So hopefully we'll see some better sailing. But we do have a gift for you, so I will give it to you tomorrow evening when you at the skipper's briefing for skipper's NASNA rally. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Kerry. And it's been an absolute pleasure. It's been an absolute pleasure. I enjoyed doing it.
Good.
Well done, Wavy. Well done.
Any questions about this evening or anything we've done while we're here?
What, Charlie?
Just a moment.
Sorry, I missed that.
I had a question. Can I ask?
Yeah, silent. Yeah, go for it.
On one of the Rio races, I remember them giving us a briefing saying that if you are off further than 25 miles, I think, then they said you could break your cans and make sure that they sunk better than carrying them over and putting them in a landfill.
Yeah. Honestly, Alan, you are allowed to drop tin and paper beyond 25 miles. If you look at that list of MARPOL stuff that we had there, the problem as it is, when it drops to big depths, it doesn't actually break up. It loses any sun, and the rust and the oxidization doesn't actually happen particularly well. So I'm just partial to just taking everything with me. It'll rust on land, it'll much more so than it'll rust when it's dropped to depths.
That include glass?
Glass doesn't break up, there's no movement down there. When it drops to big depths, glass needs obviously water flow and movement to break up. So when you drop glass over the side at depth, it'll just drop down to an absolutely dead still sea. And they proved that by the amount of champagne bottles they pulled off the Titanic.
Yeah.
Those bottles never broke. They never broke up. So if you drop a Coke bottle over the side, you know, it's 2,000 meters deep, that Coke bottle will stay a Coke bottle almost indefinitely.
Yeah, maybe the landfills are the way to go. I think we better fill the land than fill the sea.
Sorry, I missed that.
How do I get to ask a question?
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, it's Neil here. During the lockdown, we lost power and Wi-Fi, so lost a number of your sessions. Where can we pick them all up again to go through them?
Yeah, Kerry, I think you can answer that one, can't you?
Yeah, I can do. They will be in time converted onto our YouTube channel and shared with those that participated in the course initially with a code, and then it will be open to only RCYC members. But it will take time. We will announce when it goes on to the YouTube channel.
Okay, thank you.
Pleasure.
Maybe there's quite a few questions in the chat box there.
Okay, let me have a quick look. I'm not very good at, hang on.
Audio on?
What is it during lockdown?
There's one, is it okay to dump leftover hot charcoal after your bra?
Yeah, I wouldn't worry about that, quite honestly. That breaks up very, very quickly. It's just carbon, burnt carbon. Really wouldn't worry about that particularly. It will float, and I wouldn't do it in front of a nice pristine beach, but if you're going past some rocks or something, it'll break up very, very quickly. Good. Goodness me. Almost no questions today. Everyone's being very shy for the end. No restricted visibility questions. Those usually are.
Your instruction was clear, so everybody knows.
Cape Town is a favorite for people sailing alongside a fog bank. How often do we get radiation fog rolling in? And you can be one side of Table Bay in clear, beautiful, I mean, you can come out of Royal Cape and you're in clear, clear, clear conditions. By the time you exit the harbor, you're actually in fog. I mean, that's Cape Town's very, very often that, okay? And what's a good idea is to literally, as you're motoring through the harbor, is to start doing your sound signals as you're getting towards the restricted visibility. You'll also find the harbor master really appreciates that, because he does know then that you are abiding by the rules correctly. And I've heard many a time when I've had school boats coming through and we've been going into the waterfront, for instance, and you go from restricted visibility to clear visibility and then back into fog, but you keep doing your sound signals as you enter and exit. I've actually had port control on the radio saying, thank you very much. Nice to see that the rules are being abided by correctly. And port control actually appreciate that.
Another one there, Wavy, us from Gideon.
The commentary fog. When in fog, pay attention to your compass. Your sense of wind, waves can be confused quite quickly without external references. Yes, that's like from a sailing point of view or from an actual maneuvering point of view. It's a very good idea. Hence, get a fix, know where you are, and then know exactly where you're going. Yeah, that's a very good point. Thank you. You can get lost and confused very, very, very quickly in fog. I've lost all reference.
Hi, Wavy. It's Simon here.
Yeah, hi, Simon.
Yeah, many of us got our skipper's tickets probably back in the 80s when CASA kind of started the whole skipper ticket project. So thank you so much for sharing us all your knowledge and giving us 10 weeks of your time on Wednesdays. It's been great to have this refresher. It's actually a lot of this is common sense, but the way you put it across was really great. I really appreciate it. So from me, thanks so much.
Simon, absolute pleasure. I mean, if we can make ourselves as a club a better, more educated way at sea, then it can only be to the club's benefit anyway.
Yeah.
And I think the more skippers that really do know what they're doing, the better.
Yeah, it's been great. Thanks so much.
Absolutely true.
pleasure.
Wavy, can you just click back on your scroll to show your email address? Is there?
Yep, I can do that.
Thanks.
Hang on. I've got to try and work out how to make things vanish and things appear in. There we go. I think as a follow-up, and we're in sort of conversations, what we probably are going to do is try and put together some sessions and or courses for people who are interested. I know we've had quite a lot of interest in celestial navigation, and I think there are a number of people that actually want to do a skipper's course. So I'm in conversation with the guys to see if we can't do something from the club's point of view, and then see if we can't take this education further for those who actually want to do tickets and have time to do things like that. So for those who are interested in it, we'll definitely come back to you.
Definitely.
Oops, what did I do there? There we go.
Dave, thanks for that. We'll be looking forward to some news on that front.
Yeah, Jason will let you know.
Yes, man. Thank you. Thanks for everything. It's been great.
Yeah, I see there's a number of people saying celestial interested. No, I don't have a time and date yet, sorry. See, the one thing we don't want to do, and I don't want to do, is, okay, so we're going to be doing a course and we're going to maybe hand out tickets or something like that. And we need to be very careful as the club not to give, you know, preference to one school or another school or this or that, you know, so it's kind of it's quite a political hotbed. So we must just navigate it carefully. For sextant work without books. Well, you can't do sextant work without books. You need nautical almanac and tables. You can get them all downloaded versions, but they're still the same information. There are a couple of apps available that will take your readings and convert them, but that's, you know, it's not doing celestial nav, it's kind of punching in numbers. No more questions? Do all new sites. Part of your celestial navigation is to be able to learn how to take all sites. So sun, run, sun, sun, meridian, sun, which is your noon sites with both, and then do moon sites, do star sites. There's 53 stars that we use. To basically, the course will cover all that. So, and then how to swing a compass, and with using a sextant as well. Gary, that seems to be it.
Perfect.
Should we call it a night then, guys?
100%. Well done, Wavy. We'll speak tomorrow.
Thanks, Alan. See you tomorrow evening, guys.
See you tomorrow night. Thanks, man. Go well, guys.